I'd like to welcome our guests on the galleries, and you're most welcome, and we're pleased that you're here this morning for this vote number 7, National Treasury State Security. Just want to inform you of the rules of the House, that you may not participate in the debate. It means you may not clap hands, you may not shout, you may not whistle, may not stand and jump up and down, but you may smile, it's fine, you can smile. But you're most welcome, and thank you very much for being here. And the Secretary will now read the order.
Debate on vote number 7, National Treasury State Security Appropriation Bill.
I now call upon the Honorable Minister of State Security.
The Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Ministers present here, the Deputy Ministers, the Deputy Minister of State Security, Honorable Mulikani, the Chairperson and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, Honorable Members of Parliament, heads of entities within the ministry, the Acting Director General of the State Security Agency, Mr. Jafta, veterans of the intelligence community, distinguished guests, good morning, Dumelang. Chairperson, we stand before this House to table our budget vote policy statement for 2018-19 financial year. We do so knowing fully well that the tasks before us is not an easy one, yet we are encouraged by the spirit of our forebears on whose shoulders we stand, who during the time of the liberation struggle, they stood firm. In their honor, Honorable Chairperson, we are responding to the Tumamina call, as it is known like that, and we dedicate our lives to work tirelessly to achieve the vision which they outline in the Freedom Charter and today find its expression in our Constitution. As we celebrate the centenary of our great leaders, Utata Nelson Mandela and Umama Albertina Sisulu, we are reminded, Honorable Chairperson, of their work and sacrifice during the struggle days and their role in ushering democracy. One of the critical documents of democratic intelligence dispensation, namely the White Paper on Intelligence of 1995, which remain instructive but due for review, Honorable Chairperson, describes what the purpose of intelligence in our country ought to be. In this regard, the White Paper on Intelligence says, and I quote on paragraph 3.2.3, that in the modern post-war world, intelligence to be relevant must serve the following purposes. 1, it must provide the policymakers timely, critical, and sometimes unique information to warn them on potential risks and dangers. Also, it must identify opportunities in the international environment through assessing real or potential competitors' intentions and capabilities. Again, it says it should assist good governance through providing honest, critical intelligence that highlights the weaknesses and errors of government. Now, us as in the intelligence services, we should tell the government what they ought to know and not what they want to know. The White Paper, Honorable Chairperson, goes further to describe the mission of intelligence as following in paragraph 3.2.4. In South African context, the mission of intelligence community is to provide evaluated information with the following responsibilities in mind. 1, the safeguarding of the Constitution and upholding the individual's rights as outlined in the Bill of Rights. Secondly, to promote the interrelated elements of security, stability, cooperation, and development both within our country and in Southern Africa. Also to achieve the national prosperity while making an active contribution to the global peace and other global defined priorities for the well-being of humankind. And lastly, to promote South Africa's ability to face foreign threats and to enhance the competitiveness and in this dynamic world. Chairperson, over the recent past, the State Security Agency has been the subject of discussions and debate as it relates to the failures in its governance and operational capacities. During the State of the Nation address, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa reflected on the need to restore the integrity and credibility of public institutions, which are charged with critical mandates in our country. It is quite evident that one of our tasks is to respond to the state of affairs and take bold, decisive decisions which speaks to the directives given by the President, guided by the Constitution, of course. Honorable Chairperson, when I took office or responsibilities, myself and the Deputy Minister embarked on an extensive consultative processes to engage senior management and officials responsible for various programs of all the entities reporting to the ministry, with the intention of fully grasping the extent and the depth of the operational and governance capacities in this institution. During this process, Honorable Chair, we identified, amongst other things, that we are confronted with systemic, structural, and governance weaknesses that requires urgent attention. It became very clear that these challenges stem from the recent past where the agency has been in perpetual state of transition. We are therefore encouraged by and welcome the decision by Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa to appoint a review panel that will assess the structure of the agency in relation to its mandates and inquire into the systems and capacity. These announcements indeed is a strong confirmation that the ministry is carrying out its work in line with the Constitution and the mission which seeks to strengthen the public institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I can confirm that we are at work to ensure a swift establishment of the panel, which will be constituted by a team of not more than 10 experts in the field of intelligence restructuring, the security governance issues, the ICT development, organizational design, change management, and also we included strategic thinkers, what we think they are strategic thinkers. Upon the completion of the panel, Honorable Chairperson, we shall work with speed to implement its recommendations as we focus on restoring the public confidence and narrowing the trust deficit which existed in the public domain. In this way, we will ensure that the agency live up to both the purpose and the mission of intelligence as captured in the Constitution and also in the White Paper of Intelligence and other relevant legislations. In relation to building organizational capacity, Chairperson, part of restoring the public confidence in the intelligence services will include deliberate acts of professionalizing the services. Now, in this regard, there will be no place for rogue elements within our intelligence services. We have a responsibility to ensure that the institution responsible for being the guardians of peace have to be clean and free to conduct their work with integrity. We will also ensure that controls pertaining to financial management of the institution, particularly in relation to the management of operational funds, what sometimes we refer them COVID in other words, are also strengthened. Our focus will be on investing in our ability to produce intelligence products of the highest quality. In this regard, we will conduct a review of the relevance of the training curriculum content of our Intelligence Academy so that we can assure ourselves that our officers receive the highest standard of tradecraft training to ensure competency in fulfilling their national requirements. And the panel will also focus on our academy as well. Furthermore, Honorable Chairperson, we will also ensure that we conduct our comprehensive review on the functioning of our analytical capacities, as this is supposed to be the engine which drives the intelligence gathering and advising machinery. We are resolute in ensuring that we reconstruct the agency, arrest the rot, while ensuring at the same time that corporate governance and efficiencies are enhanced. We shall also work on cost-cutting measures without compromising service delivery while enhancing enhancing levels of accountability. Linked to this, Honorable Chairperson, we shall also take steps to improve our cooperation with all oversight bodies, respecting their different mandates as expressed and provided for in our Constitution. It is a matter of public record that recently there were tensions between the Office of the Inspector General and the DG of State Security Agency. We will work on improving the institutional regulatory mechanisms between the two institutions. Together with the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, we must initiate a process that will yield greater independence of the Office of the IG. We need to review the Intelligence Oversight Act and regulations to give effect to this, and also other matters, including the issue of, to consider the issue of having a Deputy Inspector General. This office is a very critical instrument that should guarantee that the intelligence services of the state discharge their mandates within the laws of our country. These are some of the interventions we will be making in our quest to restore the integrity and also the credibility and capabilities, as well as public confidence in our intelligence services and the critical role to be played by the public in ensuring the safety and the stability of our country in order to safeguard our constitutional democracy. Relation to the issues of corruption, Honorable Chairperson, in relation to the issues of corruption, Honorable Chairperson, this year the President of the country has called on all of us to turn the tide of corruption in our public institutions and also in the private sector. In our effort to reassert the authority of the state, we recognize the scourge of corruption from individual petty theft and small-time bribery on the roads through our officials in the departments, in municipalities, or at our ports of entry, to large-scale organized corruption in the form of state capture, poses the most significant threat to our national security as well as the well-being of our people. The state security structures, unfortunately, seem not to have been spared from this scourge either, with recent allegations of irregular and unlawful conduct. We will, Honorable Chairperson, have to confront these allegations of corruption and misconduct in the state security structures head-on and hold the guilty parties responsible to the letter of the law and take steps to recover monies not accounted for. We are clear that a prerequisite in the fight against corruption and state capture is for those structures charged with this responsibility of fighting corruption to be cleansed first. I want to emphasize to be cleansed first in order for them to fulfill their responsibility without fear, favor, or prejudice. The combating of corruption will require that we coordinate maximally with all the relevant institutions of state, including the Anti-Corruption Task Team. In this regard, Honorable Chair, we have started to conduct proactive risks assessments of government institutions, including state-owned enterprises, in order to gain an idea of an extent of actual corruption which have faced and put mitigation measures in place to effectively reduce such potential risks. At the same time, we shall lend all the necessary support which will be required by the Commission of Inquiry into the State Capture. As indicated by the President in the State of Nation address, the Commission is critical in ensuring that the extent and the nature of state capture is established, that confidence in public institutions is restored, and that those responsible for any wrongdoings face the consequences thereof. It is through the speedy implementation of these measures, Honorable Chair, that we shall truly narrow the trust deficit that exists between government and the citizenry. This will also effect to the purpose of intelligence of assisting good governance through providing timeous intelligence that highlights the weaknesses and the error of government. Honorable Chair, our country will hold its national and provincial elections next year. As with the previous elections, our department, in collaboration with JCPS cluster, will have to create conditions to ensure that the upcoming elections is secured, credible, and free and fair. I now want to address the issue of domestic stability. Honorable Chairperson, our country enjoys relative stability, save for sporadic incidences of unrest which do not constitute a major threat. There is no orchestrated campaign or action to create instability at a national scale. That's the confirmation we want to reassure to the public. We maintain that South Africans have a constitutional right to protest, but we continue to condemn the violence and destruction of property that is sometimes associated with such actions. In this regard, the law enforcement agencies, together with ourselves, will continue to discharge the lawfully responsible to ensure that the safety of the public is guaranteed. We are concerned by the recent development in provinces such as Northwest and KZN. We are noting those developments. Allow me also to touch on border security, Honorable Chairperson. Our border security remains vulnerable due to insufficient monitoring and controls. This vulnerability is exploited by illegal migrants and also criminals. In the year ahead, we shall continue to contribute our knowledge and intelligence information towards the capacitation of Border Management Authority with the objective of improving our border security. We will also continue to work with relevant border role players domestically and in the SADC region towards the improvement of our domestic and regional border security at our ports of entry. We remain encouraged, however, that despite these challenges, the integrated security and law enforcement agencies are making great inroads in intercepting and arresting criminals who are involved in various illegal activities at some of our ports of entry. The other issue which we want to bring to this August House is in relation to counter-terrorism, radicalization, and violent extremism. Terrorism continues to dominate the current global security agenda. South Africa faces similar but unique counter-terrorism challenges based on our own national experiences as well as the national, regional, and international threats perspectives. In this regard, Honorable Chairperson and members of the House, counter-terrorism cooperation with international role players should be informed by our own country's own understanding of risks posed by terrorism to ourselves and in the region of SADC. South Africa remains specifically concerned over the influence of extremism and terror groups in Africa. Working within the collective of the national security structures, we will continue to ensure the effective implementation of the National Counterterrorism Strategy, which was adopted a few years ago. We will also continue the partnerships that we have established with a number of communities and civil society structures, and will continue to have extensive engagements with international partners in our quest to improve cooperation on these matters. We reiterate that although there has been no major terror attacks in our country, we should continue to be vigilant and not lower our guards. Honorable Chairperson, we remain concerned that the inadequate state of security at government departments, at state-owned entities and national key points, combined with general inadequate security awareness amongst government officials, remain one of the most serious security threats facing government systems and processes at present. In order to address these challenges, we shall be employing measures to enhance our vetting capacity to respond to these challenges. We will also complete the drafting of a new vetting regulations for state institutions that will include sanctions of non-compliance, both for individuals as well as for the heads of institutions who fail to ensure that staff under their supervision have the requisite security
5
clearances,
minutes.
which are commensurated with their responsibilities. On global security environment, Chair, South Africa has consistently advocated the importance of multilateralism in dealing with a wide range of security threats in the 21st century. Given the threats such as drug trafficking, the human trafficking, terrorism, unregulated migration, illicit financial flows, money laundering, the proliferation of weapons, etc., this, Honorable Chairperson, they know no borders. The proxy wars in Syria, the threats of nuclear destruction in Korea, the continuing tensions in the South China Sea, and the unilateral withdrawal from the International Agreement on Iran, amongst others, are matters of global security concerns. Even ourselves, we are concerned, Chairperson. It is for these reasons that we urgently need to reform and strengthen multilateral institutions of global governance, in particular the United Nations Security Council, which require an urgent review. Indeed, Honorable Chairperson, while the Security Council remains the primary organ mandated to promote and maintain international peace and security, it has not been effective in this mandate in a number of instances. The maintenance of national security and stability creates the conditions for the development objective to be implemented and grow the economy. These goals compel us to ensure that South Africa's national priorities, as informed by the National Development Plan, are advanced in a bilateral and multilateral fora. Part of our responsibility is to support government work as important players in the African Union, also in the United Nations and BRICS, in pursuit of continental and international peace security informed by our own foreign policy. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, I wish to reiterate that we are standing at a historical moment where we are presented with an opportunity to take stock of the functioning and appropriate structuring of the intelligence structures. Now, in any democratic society, and in particular in today's global integrated world, intelligence has a crucial role to play in protection of the constitutional order, the provision of forewarning of threats to our democracy and constitutional values, and also in assisting with the economic development of our country through identification of opportunities. We therefore, Honorable Chairperson, wish to call on all South Africans in the spirit of Tumamina to become part of the solution in creating conditions for stability and safeguarding the interest of our country. The sophisticated and complex security systems that any country can have in place to safeguard its borders and its people will not succeed if its citizens are not part of that solution. Intelligence work is about patriotism of a cleaner in the street, of a farmer in the village, of a worker in the factory floor, or of an ordinary person in the township who must share information on any suspicious act of wrongdoings or any threats to the to the authorities. We should all be part of defending our country. I wish to show this House that, as the President has instructed, we shall spare no effort in ensuring that we attend to all institutional governance challenges and work to restore the public confidence of the agency. I humbly submit this budget vote for the Department of State Security Council. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'll now call upon Honorable Ngagula.
Honorable Chairperson and all honorable members present at this session. Honorable Minister, there will be some similarities between what you have raised and some of the issues I'll also raise. But I'm going to be raising them purely as points of emphasis. South Africa's security services have the most difficult and demanding task. This is apparent from what the country's constitution demands of them, because the constitution spells out what is required of the services in the principle it defines to govern national security. The very first principle dictates that, quote, national security must reflect a resolve of South Africans as individuals and as a nation to live as equal, to live in peace and harmony, to be free from fear and want, and to seek a better life, unquote. Ordinarily, tasks like these are carried out by politicians. However, the security services, having understood the first principle, are further enjoined by the Constitution to ensure, in pursuit of the ideals of peace and harmony, which no South African citizen participates in armed conflict, nationally or internationally. It is a matter of the record, though, that some South Africans have been and continue to be involved in some of the conflicts in the world, who offer a variety of security services in pursuit of those conflicts. This is a matter that requires a real look at the relevant legislation for possible amendment, and in keeping with the injunctions of the Constitution. The security services, therefore, are expected not to allow racism in their ranks. They must not spread fear among the people and must not deprive them of the services they require to fulfill the ideal of a better life for all. Furthermore, members of the security services are precluded from participating in armed conflict in South Africa itself or working as mercenaries elsewhere in the world. We know where the drafters of our Constitution were coming from when they framed these stipulations in the way they did. They remembered and put this in the preamble to the Constitution, that South Africa's past was pockmarked by injustices which were visited against the majority of the population. Just being black was a crime in the eyes of the apartheid practitioners, from the members of the government of the day to the security forces. They remembered the many South African citizens who were kidnapped and tortured, many of them being killed and buried in shallow graves at unknown places. They remembered how the security forces would lay siege to many of the country's townships and kill some residents. They remembered Sharpeville in the Vaal. They remembered Langa in Udnik. They also remembered the various instances of raids by the security forces into some countries on the African continent, including Lesotho, Swaziland, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, where scores of innocent people were killed. They also remember the invasion of Angola by the country's security forces. South Africans, from both sides of the struggle for South Africa's liberation, will always remember Kwito Kanavale. Remembering all of this, our constitution makers inserted the following principles to bring the security services under strict command and control. Quote, national security must be pursued in compliance with the law, including international law, and that national security is subject to the authority of Parliament and the National Executive, unquote. The Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence was established by our Parliament as an additional measure to ensure that the security services remain at all times true to the dictates of our Constitution. South Africa's democratic order is young. This does not mean, of course, that we should not be judged by the pace of our progress to a better life for all. There are many things we should have resolved by now as part of the African National Congress government's political project to transform ours into a thoroughgoing democracy, where the people, united in action, play a major role as participants in the country's political, economic, and social fabric. The concept of a better life incorporates many elements. One of those is peace and security. Peaceful existence and the safety of all citizens are top of the building blocks of thoroughgoing democracy. The creation of political space for public participation is one of the pillars of that type of democracy, which usually leads to honest assessment of the needs of the populace and therefore better service delivery. When the citizens go into our streets demanding services, they are not committing a wrong. When they hold meetings where they raise very strongly issues pertaining to their lives, they are not wrong. And we can't therefore put our security forces against them simply because we are refusing to understand the demands that the people raise. The popular participation of citizens to improve their system of governance is actually enshrined in the ANC's Freedom Charter and has been encapsulated in South Africa's constitution for laying the foundations, quote, for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people, unquote. The Freedom Charter is more succinct. It says, quote, the people shall govern, unquote. The ANC also believes in justice. Former Judge Albie Sachs, who was asked by the ANC President, Oliver Reginald Tambo, to submit to the Cape Conference in 1985 a draft code of conduct for the ANC, made the following remark, open quotes. In fighting for justice in our land, we must ensure at all times that justice exists inside our own organization. Our members, the people of South Africa and the people of the world, must know and feel that for us, justice is not merely an ideal, but the fundamental principle that governs all our actions. Accordingly, we must at all times act justly in our own ranks, train our people in the procedure of justice, and establish the embryo of the new justice system we envisage for a liberated South Africa, unquote. and the security forces, therefore, are also enjoined, indeed, to follow the dictates of justice and the discharge of the functions that have been allocated to them. And justice means, therefore, that we need to act in ways in which we do not antagonize our population, which demands services. Judge Albisek's submission was directed in the first instance at the ANC's intelligence and security organs. It is instructive, therefore, that he said the ANC's understanding of justice should be, quote, the embryo of the new justice system in a liberated South Africa. That is why it is incumbent, therefore, on our security forces indeed to act in the manner that is described in terms of the definitions of that justice. The South African Constitution, therefore, became the supreme law of the Republic, which, among other things, would be used, quote, to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. The best early warning system for government is a well-run program of very good intelligence gathering. It is through such a system that government will know when there exists a clear and present danger to the democratic order. At times, such a danger is engendered by social displeasure at government's failure to deliver essential services to the people. And when government officials plunder the resources meant for the people in a frenzy of rampant corruption. The other social ills include crime and criminality, which impact on the people's peace and security, as well as threats from outside forces, including international terrorism. On the other side of the coin, the ugly head of racism continues to emerge within our communities. If unchecked, this matter could easily develop into a conflagration of serious racial tension with ugly consequences. Evidence at our disposal, Honorable Minister, dictates that we are not fully equal to the challenges we are facing. As a government, we are not delivering a fulfilling service to our people, and discontent, therefore, continues, thus threatening our project of a well-functioning democracy. That discontent, as we know, translates more often than not into demonstrations that invariably become violent. We know there are pockets of good work happening within our intelligence community as a whole. However, we need a tighter rein over the services. Command and control will ensure our people feel safe and are safe. We will plead with you, Honorable Minister, to exercise that command and control without fear or favor over this secret service, the security services. We shall provide whatever guidance our oversight mechanism allows to ensure wrongdoing in state security is completely eliminated by you as the political head of the entity. We have already indicated to you some of the instances of wrongdoing that has happened within the entity in the interactions we have had with you. The completion of the investigation of those cases of malfeasance is urgent, and where cases of wrongdoing are clearly visible, the concerned individuals must be criminally charged. I shall not elaborate at this time on the matters under investigation and those that have been identified for further investigation. I want to repeat, though, that crimes committed by members of the security services must be dealt with urgently and consistently. No space must be allowed for criminal conduct to sprout. Agents who do wrong must be dealt with quickly and effectively. And all instances of corruption must be investigated fully and prosecuted when criminality is exposed. The principles of our Constitution on the security services, which I have already quoted, make it imperative for us not to tolerate any form of misdemeanor on the part of members of our intelligence community. It is clear, Honorable Minister, that we need to reconstruct intelligence services and build better entities that can compete with the best in the world. Unfortunately, you have also raised this matter, which means that there is a huge project for all of us, which we have to attend to in order for us to reconstruct these services. We need to interrogate the relevant legislation to determine the length we can travel to achieve the goal of establishing an effective system of intelligence in our country. The State Security Agency will need adequate resources to do better than the case is at present. It is with that in mind that we support your budget vote. The South African public will be better served if the entire intelligence community in our country is well-resourced. The intelligence community as a whole, but including the security agency, must have all the tools needed for intelligence work. The service will be the guarantor in the final analysis of peace and harmony in South Africa, where our people must be free from all threats to their lives, when all intelligence agents have all the tools needed in their craft. They need to acquire better resources, both human and material. They must be fully capacitated to do their intelligence gathering work unencumbered by deficiency of any kind. In other words, the intelligence agents must be trained and fully professional in the discharge of their obligations.
You have 5 minutes.
Anything that is old and obsolete must be phased out, and new and better things, especially from the modern technological field, must be brought in. In other words, if there are human resources, old and ineffective, they also must be phased out. There must be established a very good network of sources of information that must be dependable. All information collected must go through a system of rigorous testing and verification before collation and dissemination to the various principals. The SSA cannot afford to be part of the new world malady of fake news. We are all well aware of the many wars that have erupted around the world since time immemorial on the basis of fake intelligence. And we do not want that to happen as a consequence of intelligence, false intelligence from our services. Iran continues to suffer because of false intelligence that the country had amassed weapons of mass destruction. This matter of false intelligence we have experienced in South Africa in the past. There are many instances where documents were circulated, purporting to be coming from our security services. There is a matter that is still on our table, Honorable Minister, because it has been raised on a number of occasions in our parliament. The matter of Project Spiderweb. That matter has to be completed. I am therefore, on behalf of the JSCI, going to be writing to you on that matter. We also do not want our services to be involved in our country's political domain with a view to manipulate the processes of decision-making. All interceptions, when moves become necessary, must be done in strict conformity with our laws, and the purpose of invoking such measures must be for fighting crime and criminality. There is a matter that I want to raise as my last point, that on the 28th of March, Honorable Minister, the JSCI had a meeting. And in that meeting, we were discussing matters arising from allegations and counter-allegations. We took a resolution that we needed to go deep into that question, but unfortunately, it spilled into the public domain. as a conflict between the DG of Intelligence, Mr. Arthur Fraser at the time, and our Inspector General, Isaac Dintwe. As you know, Honorable Minister, that matter having gone out into the public domain put all of us in a situation of embarrassment. We are going to do the investigation that we had intended to do, in spite of the moves that were done, including the removal as DG of Mr. Arthur Fraser. It is important for us to complete that task. It is already before the JSCI, and therefore we want to complete it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ngakula. I now call upon Honorable Stube.
Agbare voorsitter, minister, waarnemende DG, die inspekteur-generaal, SSA personeel en gaste. 26 September 2016 kan geag word as 'n noodlottige dag vir die Staatsveiligheidsagentskap, die SSA. Dit was die dag toe Arthur Fraser met groot fanfare heraangestel is in die posisie van direkteur-generaal. Hierdie aankondiging is deur die destydse minister David Mslobo bekendgemaak en hy meld onder andere dat hy volle vertroue het in Fraser, wat al as adjunkt-direkteur-generaal in die Nasionale Intelligensieagentskap werksaam was. Die aankondiging word gedoen ten spyte daarvan dat hy bewus was van Fraser se betrokkenheid by die PEN-projek. In die program het Fraser toegesien dat familie en vriende onwettig aangestel word sonder enige sekuriteitsklaring. Daar is miljoene rande spandeer vir uitermate vergoeding in terme van salaris en byvoordele. Wonings is uit staatsfondse aangekoop en weer aan die projek verhuur. Daar word ook beweer dat ongeveer 290 luukse voertuie aangekoop was vir die projek. Die vorige minister Siyabonga Cwele, sowel as die destydse voorsitter van die JSCI, Cecil Burgess, was ook terdee bewus van die kriminaliteit in die PEN-projek. En alhoewel die saak destyds aan die Hawks oorhandig is, is daar tot hede geen vervolging ingestel nie. Dit is om hierdie rede dat die DA se hoofspeep John Steenhuis op 18 Mei 2017, wat vandag net mooi 'n jaar gelede is, 'n versoek gerig het vir 'n volle ondersoek na Arthur Fraser en sy betrokkenheid by die PEN-program. Dit het egter die waagmoed van die bekroonde joernalis Jacques Pau gekos om die hele aangeleentheid te ondersoek en te openbaar in sy boek The President's Keepers. Tot ontsteltenis van Fraser en sy meelopers, wat op daardie stadium ook gedreig het met regstappe teen Pau. Minister, die inhoud van die boek is nie alleen 'n skandvlek op die SSA nie, maar ook openbaar ook verskeie strategiese departemente se betrokkenheid by staatskaping. Die JSCI, wat as 'n parlementêre oorsigkomitee oor staatsveiligheid moet waak, word ook geïmpliseer in terme van sy mandaat om oor sulke ongeruimthede te rapporteer. Dit ten spyte dat die projek by etlike geleenthede in die komitee bevraagteken is en talle versoeke gerig was om die volledige ondersoek verslag beskikbaar te stel. Dit is egter onder die huidige voorsitter Charles Nkakula dat die aangeleentheid momentum gekry het en is ons nou in besit van die volledige verslag. Minister, u is bewus daarvan dat daar nie meer gedetailleerde inligting uit die komitee bekend gemaak kan word nie. Dit vrywel egter nie die JSCI om die hoofstuk af te sluit nie. Inteendeel, die werk begin nou eers om toe te sien dat elke persoon wat aandeel gehad het in hul verryking uit staatsgeld tot verantwoording te roep en krimineel te vervolg. Minister, daar was lesse te leer uit die onthulling van die PEN-projek. Die leemtes wat geïdentifiseer is, het veral betrekking tot die volgende wetgewing wat dringend hersiening kort. Die Oversight Act, National Strategic Intelligence Bill, Protection of Personal Information Act, GLAB, as ook RICA-wetgewing. Minister, 'n tweede aspek wat egter aandag moet geniet, is die implementering van 'n eie begroting vir u departement. Tans is dit vervat in die SSA-begroting wat op self in die nasionale tesourie se begroting verskans is. 'n Eie begroting vir u departement kan meehelp dat funksies van die inspekteur-generaal en NICOC direk onder u resorteer. Dit sal meebring dat die twee afdelings onafhanklik kan funksioneer en sodanig hulle volle potensiaal kan bereik.
A minute left.
Om u ingelig te hou en te voorkom dat ongeruimthede ongesiens verbygaan. Derhalwe het u ministerie ook groter onafhanklikheid en behoort die blootstelling aan oorsig en auditering die algemene publiek gerus te stel. Minister, as u dink dat die ongeruimthede in die departement opgelos is deur die wegskyf van Arthur Fraser, is u ongelukkig verkeerd. Die verknorsing waarin die departement in die SSA self bevind, is die gevolg van wanbestuur en sal ingrypende introspeksie en hersiening benodig word om te verseker dat geloofwaardigheid in die diens en die moraal van die amptenary wat daarin dien herstel word. Ek dank u.
Thank you, Chairperson. The intelligence services in our country are in complete service of crime and corruption. The Joint Intelligence Committee has received reports after reports of how generals in the police and in the army are abusing state resources for personal benefit. No intelligence is being collected to fight crime, and the evidence is all over. More than 110 cash in transit cases have already been reported since January. Some of these cash in transits are happening on the major roads. We all witnessed the torching of trucks on the N1, the attack on the Verula Mosque. These intelligence services are not in service of our country. We have been told of a family in Durban called Marimutu, a convicted drug dealer who is still on police payroll, with more than 50 members of his family receiving salaries for doing nothing. We have been told of a general who bought a house in Pretoria's expensive suburb using the so-called secret account funds. When they come to us to present their budget, for instance, they have items called operational budget, operational cost, which is the largest item in the budget. We don't know what is happening. At most, it's a coordinated effort because when you ask them what's in this operational cost, it's a repetition of other items that are already existing in the budget. They ask millions of rands for rent, but we don't know renting what buildings, what square meters, so that we are able to judge if the money being requested is justifiable. All intelligence services are a huge cover-up for corruption. There is no single intelligence product we have ever been told of. In the state security, they used millions, for an example, to purchase software for social media monitoring that actually doesn't exist. And yet, in the same budget that they are presenting to us, they are asking for more funds to buy the same software. The code of secrecy that we are being sworn into is a big ploy to protect corruption, and Parliament must not be complicit. If money is not being used for intelligence services, it is unlawful to keep quiet. It is unlawful to go into some committee and pretend that we are receiving information that is intelligent when we are not. And we are complicit in literally being witnesses to state resources being looted for personal benefit. And we are there quiet, and the country doesn't know. South Africa must know that we're not in reception of any intelligence product in that committee. To come here and even be asked to approve a budget, to do what? We have never been told. We don't know what money is being used for at all. These intelligence services are not being held accountable. Nobody knows what they are up to, including the minister. In your own admission, you indicate that our intelligence services need a cleansing from dysfunctionality and corruption. Yet you come here and you are saying that you can guarantee us of safety. On what basis? If they are dysfunctional and they are not giving you an intelligence product, how do you know that we are safe? How do you know of any security threats that we are facing domestically and internationally? You don't know. Because why? These services are dysfunctional. Majority of the reports that we are receiving is that they are busy in corruption. No intelligence product has ever been delivered to you to indicate that we are safe at all. We reject this budget. And those who support it must be honest today to all of South Africans. They are supporting it for what? They are supporting it for what? You are being dishonest because these intelligence services have not told you that they are doing anything. You are supporting a budget, you don't know what it's doing. The greatest threat are members of parliament who are approving monies. They don't know what those monies are doing, what for. That is the greatest threat. The greatest threat is us as a committee approving money when we don't know what it's being used for. That is the greatest threat to the security of the country. I want to make a context.
1 minute left.
I want to make a comment that there is a coordinated intelligence or counterintelligence happening internationally around the land expropriation debate. We are being painted at the moment in the whole world that we are planning a genocide on white people. The same misinformation that leads attacks, for an example, like in Syria and like in Iraq. We have to be ready as a country in the process of trying to correct this injustice in the past, that we may be facing a real, for the first time, international threat. And our intelligence services are busy looting our resources. And we as a committee, we actually don't know. That is the truth. I'm waiting for them to come and counter that information now. There's no intelligence happening in South Africa. We don't know. We're approving money that we don't know what it's being done for. Anything that we know is that these people are corrupt. Generals, police, politicians, in the secret account, money is being used to undermine our security. For all we know, they are the ones busy collaborating with criminals and cash in transit and all other activities that are happening in our country. Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister. Just as the Deputy Minister is about to speak, please note that we should all keep to the rules. And the rules were outlined at the beginning of this mini plenary. So no standing up and clapping and et cetera, et cetera. Let's please keep to the rules and ensure the decorum of the House. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the session, Minister of State Security, Comrade Letsatsi Juba, Ministers, Deputy Ministers here present, Chairperson and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, Acting Director General of State Security Agency, and members, intelligence veterans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow South Africans. Chairperson, at the inception of this administration, we undertook to engage with our young people in high schools to enlighten them about our work, and with a hope to planting a seed for some of them to join the intelligence community after completing their matric and junior degrees. This program is premised on the need to infuse within our agency young talented people with relevant skills that are aligned to the vision of a risk management entity of government, which is State Security Agency, which is operating in a rapidly changing global environment in order to promote South Africa's national interest. In this instance, Chairperson, allow me to acknowledge the presence in the gallery of two students who were beneficiaries of this program. They are Ms. Mpokati of the University of the Free State, who studied a Bachelor of Arts degree, thank you, and majoring in criminology and sociology, and also Ayanda Kumete from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, thank you, who is a graduate of a Bachelor of Arts degree majoring in media and political science. Allow me again also, Chairperson, to acknowledge in our midst the presence of the Vice President of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, Mr. Zev Krangel, who has always supported me in my budget speech. Thank you, comrade, for coming. We are also all aware that our Muslim community is currently observing Ramadan. I want to welcome Mr. Sheikh Ifan Abrams and Mrs. Abrams, and I thank him very much and his wife for gracing this budget speech. Where are they? Thank you very much. Oh, this side. Thank you very much for honoring and gracing this budget speech. Chairperson, honorable members, and distinguished guests, at the outset, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, pronounced that this year we celebrate the centenary of our late President Nelson Mandela and Mama Albertina Sisulu. These two giants of our struggle for liberation and freedom have contributed immensely to the attainment of the constitutional democracy we enjoy today. The values for which they believed in continue to inspire us to this day as we embark on a journey to a new dawn. To this end, Chairperson, we remain fully seized with upholding the vision and values of these two South African icons, and therefore recommit ourselves to building good relations with countries in our neighborhood, which is SADC, with countries in Africa, and also countries in the rest of the world. This repositioning and re-engineering is occasioned by what the Commander-in-Chief, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, spoke of during a question and answer session in Parliament on the 8th of May 2018, when he said, I quote, "I will shortly be setting up a review panel to assess the structure of the agency relative to its mandate and inquire into its systems and capacities. I also have instructed the Minister of State Security to take the necessary steps to attend to all governance and operational challenges confronting the agency and to work to restore the public confidence in this entire institution," close quote. In this regard, we stand ready to work and cooperate with the panel as we seek to ensure that it assists us in dealing with the challenges going forward. In our commitment to ensuring good governance, as the political leadership or the executive of this organization, we resolve to ensure that we will not allow the culture of impunity to prevail. Similarly, we commit to hold accountable all who exercise power and responsibility in the agency. I'd like to speak on cybersecurity, Chairperson. We will continue to build the capacity of the state to withstand cyber attacks. Recently, we saw reports about how hackers were able to steal money, millions of pounds from Spanish banks, and also were targeted by cyber attacks, especially their financial institution. In this regard, in this country, we will introduce uniform ICT security governance and risk management measures across government, whilst continuing to monitor and respond effectively to cyber security incidents. We will also continue to invest, Mr. Ndlozi, in research and development as we build and strengthen relationships with our international partners in relations in improving our ability to effectively detect and respond to cyber threats. Considering that South Africa is at the stage of a cyber security bill, South Africa will have to decide as to whether we will follow in the footsteps of some of our sister countries in Africa who are a little bit ahead on matters of cybersecurity. According to an article written by Matselani Mamabulo on the 16th of May 2018, apparently President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya has signed into law a cyber crimes bill. In that act, apparently it spells out very stiff punishment to cyber criminals, and it provides for timely and effective detection, prohibition, prevention, response, investigation, and prosecution of computer and cyber crimes. The legislation covers a range of offenses, including unauthorized access, interception, disclosure of passwords, cyber espionage, false publication, cyber terrorism. It also deals with computer forgery, computer fraud, cyber harassment, publication of false information, cyber squatting, identity theft and impersonification, phishing, interception of electronic messages or money transfer, willful misdirection of electronic messages, and fraudulent use of electronic data, among other cyber crimes. We are looking forward to engage with our NGOs, our stakeholders, as we go forward to enact our own Cyber Security Act. With regards to terrorism, Chairperson, and extremism, as it's also part of our responsibility in terms of our mandate to ensure conditions of peace and stability in our country. These include efforts we should take in combating
2 minutes
terrorism and
left.
extremism in all its manifestations, working with partners in other security clusters inside the country and outside the country. We will continue to ensure that this remains a high priority and that we improve our understanding of this evolving phenomenon, its detection, investigation, and combating. We wish to assure South Africans that our democracy remains strong and our country is relatively stable. Chairperson, last year we had a number of activities in the organization in order to boost morale. We had an Intelligence Services Day where we dealt with a backlog of service medals of our members, those who served the organization for 10, 20, and for 30 years. And we also did meritorious medals to our colleagues in the institution. I would like to conclude, Chairperson. I want you to allow me to express my unqualified gratitude to the Minister, the Ministry staff, for their unwavering support. I also wish to thank my family for their patience, understanding, and support. It is greatly appreciated. The African National Congress supports the budget vote. Ke leboga go menagane.
We'll proceed to Honorable Mwabe.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, distinguished guests, honorable members. As we are called upon to debate this budget today, the NFP is seriously concerned about the ongoing political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Chairperson, it seems that our law enforcement agencies are losing the battle with this problem. We call upon intelligence services of this country to play a visible role in addressing this problem. It gives a very bad image of our country. Chairperson, last week the country witnessed a terrible attack of worshippers at Imam Hussein Mosque in Veralem in KwaZulu-Natal. In this attack, 2 worshippers were mercilessly stabbed and 1 was brutally murdered. The leadership of the church have came out and stated clearly that it was a terrorist attack by extremists. Honorable Chairperson, this is shocking and brings fear to our society. This must not be allowed to happen anymore. Should our intelligence agencies not pay full attention to this, it will surely go on and on. Extremists must not be given any space to breathe in our country. We urge your department minister to take this matter seriously and act on it. We want a peaceful country where democracy, freedom, and right to religion prevail. Honorable members, as we all know, Parliament has given the Constitutional Review Committee a huge task to conduct public hearings on the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution in order to allow expropriation of land without compensation. The public has been given an opportunity to make submission and also to participate in the public hearings. However, Chairperson, the AfriForum, which calls itself a civil rights group, have embarked on the international mobilization against our country. And in our view, on their land reform resistance, they've just become a threat to the security of the country. And I think Honorable Ndlozi have touched on this item. They are spreading very dangerous lies which can destabilize our country, and we urge state security agencies to pay very close attention to their services. They promote a false narrative that white people in this country are under attack by government and certain political parties. It is alleged that they have met members of the US government, including National Security Advisor to Donald Trump. This Chairperson, if not attended to, will divide the society and result in some very bad consequences.
The NFP urges our agency to be always alert as the Constitutional Review Committee will be conducting these hearings as from the end of June. With these lies and activities of the AfriForum, anything can happen during these hearings.
1 minute left.
The NFP hopes that this budget will be used in a manner that brings dignity to the state security, and also in a manner that will guarantee our people peace and stability in their own country. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Members, Chairperson, and everyone, good morning. Firstly, let me say to the Intelligence Committee, we thank you for making South Africa safe. Compared to many countries in the world, both in the continent and overseas, we really appreciate and value your service. I cannot come here and say everyone in the intelligence service is a thief. Everyone in the intelligence service is corrupt. For I know that there are many honest and hard-working members of the intelligence services. And we really appreciate their contribution and their patriotism. What I can say is that the Auditor General is concerned, and he has pointed out his areas of concern. It's not in everything, but he has pointed out the areas of concern. And the IG as well, he has pointed his areas of concern. And that, I think, together we can deal with. Honorable Chairperson, I shall emphasize the need for partnership between our security forces and members of the public. That is on overt intelligence. However, before we get into that, we have to say that cash in transit heists that are becoming more frequent as we move forward as a nation are a real source of concern. It seems that something is wrong with our early warning systems for which intelligence is responsible. It is more disturbing to find that some of our own corps are involved as well. Indeed, a lot of questions arise, like who does surveillance for these criminals? Who do they get the tools of where do they get the tools of their trade? Who gives information on the rosters of the collection of money? Where is our intelligence in all that? It is in the national interest that these are stopped with immediate effect. Their resources and capacities could spell serious trouble for us, as they could soon take the direction of being armed bandits and endanger our communities as a whole. When we look at the rate of murder in places like KwaZulu-Natal, a lot of questions arise. Why are these people murdered? We say sometimes it is political, but all the same, it is murder. Who decides who should be killed? Why is it so difficult to track people whose vehicle has been seen and identified? Why do police give scanty descriptions of perpetrators to the public if they want the public to assist? Chairperson, my point is that we could build more cooperative partnerships with communities if we consciously want the public to assist. My view is that indeed, in overt intelligence, we could do better if we did things differently. However, the way the top leadership of the services keep changing is a matter of concern. Chairperson, another area is that of precious metal theft, which forms part of our infrastructure, thereby disrupting our services. Ngineqiniso lokuthi uma sikhumbula sisakhula izigxobo zikagesi kwakukhona ama-rewards, 400 rands rewards if you report theft of copper wires. I think those rewards should be made public so that our communities may volunteer and give information, because most of the time someone sees something happening to infrastructure, but they do not report. The intelligence community, however, has done a lot of good in South Africa, but we still need to do better. In Moy River, a national road was blocked with 35 burning trucks. The question is, who collected and supplied petrol for burning 35 trucks? Where were we when that happened? Why didn't the police act? Because they got information about 48 hours before. These are the things that we've got to ask. These are questions
2 minutes left.
We've got to ask. Chairperson, another area of concern is illegal mining. It also raises a number of questions about our intelligence and patriotism of us all. People in Limpopo are mining illegally using trucks and nothing happens to them. The question is, where is law enforcement? We've got to build a South Africa of debate to be. What can we do to assist? I repeat, South Africans have to stand up and work together with intelligence services. Abantu eNatali nakwezinye indawo beba inkomo. Inkomo akekho umuntu ongangitshela ukuthi akekho umuntu obone omunye umuntu eqhuba inkomo. Kodwa kungabi khona umuntu oboshwayo ndawo zidlule kuma toll gates, zidlule emgaqweni kanjalo kanjalo. Kukhona thina njengemphakathi esingakwenza. Kuzodingeka ukuthi sihlele indlela yokubambisana neinhloli namaphoyisa nabo bonke sazi kahle ukuthi mangibona umuntu eqhubha inkomo ngo12 ebusuku ngenze njani. So together as compatriots, let us build our nation. It needs us all. I thank you.
Honorable Groenewald is not here. Oh, is here. Okay. Speak on his-
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Ministers, Members of Parliament, officials of national intelligence, and guests. National intelligence is one of the most important portfolios in government. South Africa cannot afford to have dishonest, corrupt, or incompetent people to head various government and state-owned agencies. South Africa's damaged intelligence is at a crossroad. It is absolutely horrified to see how state capture infiltrate right into national intelligence by people without any integrity. The previous Minister Mthlobo Mbongu and the former Director General Arthur Fraser manipulated national intelligence into state capture. The governing party was warned several times on occasions and debate in Parliament against this evil of state capture. South Africa's new intelligence head, General Jacobs, has a mountain to climb in order to fix the mess Richard Mclaudy left behind. We cannot afford to keep such people in positions for many years with all the benefits without consequences. Minister Mbeki clearly announced on the 29th of March 2018 that General Jacobs' appointment is just one part of President Cyril Ramaphosa's arduous task of reversing the damage his predecessor Jacob Zuma did to state institutions. To turn South Africa's state agency SSA around after the suspension of the former DG Arthur Fraser who's been moved to correctional services, the new acting DG, Mr. Jafta, needs to start at top to ensure that every member of the division is properly appointed and thoroughly vetted. Jafta may do well to consider the appointment of former members of the SSA who lost their positions because of the effort to stop corruption and criminality within the division. He needs well support, especially from those with integrity and a deep understanding of the very complicated workings of intelligence. The JSCI is very worried about the vetting process. Vetting is to investigate someone thoroughly, especially in order to ensure that they are suitable for a job requiring secrecy, loyalty, and trustworthiness. Civil servants in various critical positions across government must not run away from the process of vetting. Without vetting, South Africa is sinking in this quicksand of moral decay, corruption, and state looting. The ANC seems to be obviously the reality that this is how democracy is run, and that is looking more like an organized crime syndicate. The backlog of vetting people who are employed in criminal intelligence are a serious problem and must highly prioritized by the department and rectify in the next 6 to 12 months. That will also help to bring stability into crime intelligence department. In recent years, we have become aware of an increase in vehicle-related crimes. Not only we heard of hijacking, car theft, and increasing of smash and grab, but also have seen much more organized crime of truck hijacking. Distributing evolution in the modus operandi has been detected. Where products were sold into a predefined market in South Africa, more and more syndicates are starting to appear with apparent international links and interest. Criminals are now so sophisticated that they are using jammers, diversion tactics, infiltrating teams, blackmail and implanted employees to reach products and assets. Criminals have also become more professional in terms of technique and processes. Die afgelope twee weke, was daar 2 gewapende rooftogte elke dag in Suid-Afrika. En dit kan ons regtig nie bekostig nie. En dit word ook vandag in beeld gepubliseer. Suid-Afrika kan dit nie bekostig finansiëel en dit gaan ook gepaard met mense lewensverlies. Government needs to look serious at South Africa border control. The aim was to provide integrated management of almost 5,000 kilometer land border to address. Among many other problems, drug-related crime, human trafficking, all which lend to itself to bribery and the escalation of corruption. South Africa have enough defensible people without jobs and can be trained and used for proper border control. With the latest certificate on SSA, crime intelligence...
Time has expired.
Thank you.
Honorable Kabekulu.
Honorable Chairperson, our country relies heavily upon this department for its national safety and security. The department and its professionals in its employment are the core face of keeping South Africa and its citizens free from threat and harm. It is therefore of paramount importance that the people it employs are beyond reproach and fit for such work in every sense of the word, as they are the tip of the sword in terms of delicate work they undertake, namely the work of information gathering, infiltration into organized crime and other clandestine and secretive work in fact, anything that may be a threat to our country or its citizens. The IFP is extremely concerned, though, as the staff entrusted with such a high office seem to be failing in their duties to the people of South Africa. A case in point would be the failure to anticipate and prevent organized criminals from latching onto a service delivery protest and using them as a guise and front to conduct widespread theft, looting, and destruction of property. Chairperson, the protest in Limpopo witnessed a large number of schools being burnt to ashes. This should have and could have been prevented. Government buildings were also destroyed and many vehicles were set alight, including the police vans. The recent burning of trucks on N3, which is National Road between KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces, can be regarded as another failure, as no people responsible for such action were arrested and brought to account in respect of their misdeeds. Where is the intelligence in all the above matters? Why is there no forewarning to our SEPs? Is national intelligence operating in a silo and not sharing the information? These are the questions that must be asked, and corrective action must be taken. Chairperson, is there corruption occurring within this department? The recent burglary at a high-level state institution is grave cause for concern, although one cannot say for certain who perpetrated these acts. They must certainly have been very connected and competent to have carried out same. Who watches the watchers? How do we go about cleaning up our intelligence community so that it can be free from fighting within its own ranks and units? How do we ensure that our intelligence community does not become its own shadow government, answerable to no one but themselves? The state security must scrutinize and brought back within the full oversight of government. Chairperson, abozagwethu bayiphawulile yama-extremist. Ngabe sekuqala nakithi ukuba sibe nale nkinga nale ngxaki esiyibona emazweni angaphandle la khona ukuhlaselwa khona isonto lama-Muslim.
1 minute left.
Ngabe sihlalo sifanele yini ukwemukela ukuthi intelligence elikhona iyasebenza uma ngabe kubulawa abantu kakhulukazi abaholi bezombusazwe bebulawa kukhona information evelayo kodwa kungabikho abantu ababoshwayo? Ngabe izwe lethu sithi liphephile kule intelligence ekhona njengamanje, noma abafowethu abakunakileyo kuphela ku ingxenye yabo ayibonke ukuthi bayicabangele bona ukuthi bacaphuna abakuficayo kukhona emashalofini ukuze baphume beyodla bekhuluphale nemndeni yabo? Kuyadinga ukuthi izwe lethu sukunywe, kakhulukazi uphiko lolu lwezenhloli lisukume libhekisise ukuze singabi nayo ingxaki la khona izwe lethu ligcina lishona khona eweni besijabula sithi izwe lethu liyakhululeka, siyaphuma ebugqilini nencindezelo. Ngiyathokoza. I-IFP nokho kuyayisupport ibudget.
Thank you very much. Honorable Smith.
Honourable Chair, Stephen Hawking once said, the biggest threat to knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. And that is exactly what's taking place in the JCI. Yeah. But can I just say, I would like to mention that since the appointment of the Acting Director General, Mr. Jafta, things have improved. So I hope it becomes a hallmark of your continued time being on the acting position. Thank you, Mr. Jafta. Jacques Poe's book, The President's Keepers, illustrates the urgent need to review security legislation. It shows how intelligence agencies fail to identify and prevent the capture of the state on a grand scale by the former president and the Guptas. The intelligence agencies actively collaborated in setting up an unconstitutional parallel security agency to the formal intelligence agency. The former Director General, Arthur Fraser, who was recently removed by the president, was the mastermind of the PAN project. It is alleged that Fraser received intelligence-related information at his home, employed members of his family in terms of the PAN project, bought hundreds of cars, some of which were warehoused, employed people irregularly, and spent money which was never budgeted for this purpose. The government would like us to believe that Fraser did so on his own account and without any political authority, creating a major security risk. Clearly, more transparency and accountability is required. A review of the Intelligence Oversight Act is required to ensure the true independence of the Inspector General for Intelligence. The recent High Court application by the Inspector General against Arthur Fraser in his position as the then DG, the Minister and the Joint Standing Committee indicates the application of unbridled authority and terror by a rogue Arthur Fraser against the Inspector General. The DA's High Court application against Fraser will indicate his unsuitability to be appointed to any position in government. We do this to ensure that the likes of Fraser and his cronies appointed by the Zuma administration and his former Minister of Intelligence is unsuitable and never to be repeated. A review of legislation relating to communication surveillance is also required.
1 minute left.
The Regulation of Interception and Provision of Communication-related Act illustrates, 1, the inherent risk of an ex parte application by the SSA when applying to a designated judge tasked with considering applications to monitor individuals. And 2, the lack of an expert panel who, together with a designated judge, ought to consider the merits of an application and the use of certain equipment. A representative of the general public should, together with the department, assist the delegated judge and the panel in considering the merits of an application to monitor a certain individual. In accordance with developing trends in other democracies, persons who are monitored should be informed of such monitoring after the lapse of a certain period when it is safe to do so. The use of mass surveillance that targets people without being suspected of criminality is also very concerning. Very little, if any, legislation exists to regulate the use of mass surveillance. Mass surveillance network analysis is conducted at the National Communications Center, using hacking and location tracking capabilities with no oversight or control.
Time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next speaker is ZS Dlamini Dubaza.
Ngiyabonga Maqhubane. Honorable House Chair, honorable members of the Parliament, honorable Minister and the Deputy Minister, the Auditor General of the Republic of South Africa, the head of the services, intelligence community and its veterans, Sanbonani. ANC wishes the Muslim community a peaceful and a happy Ramadan. Honorable House Chair, the 5th National Conference of the African National Congress at the Nazareth flagged a concern on the activities of the private security companies. I quote, the security of the private security companies to the outsourcing of the state security and the military functions poses a threat to the security of the Republic because of extensive foreign ownership of and involvement in the industry, with foreign shareholders controlling 50 to 60% of the market capitalization of the industry, a close quote. The ANC Honorable House Chair noted that our government's approach to regulate the industry has been a piecemeal and largely ineffective. It is the ANC's views that towards this, there's little that has taken place. Honorable House, ANC towards this has to be taken seriously by the state security since we, the ANC, are the leaders of the society. The society has raised concern on mass interception, and all the blame is directed to the African National Congress. Rightful so, as the ANC is the leader and it lives. It is our duty to ensure that all South Africans live free and safe. Chair, it is important to outline the process of interception to all South Africans, since there is so much wrong perception that move around, especially in the social media within our country. The process goes as follows. A designated judge who is appointed by the president is in charge of giving the rights to do the interception. So an applicant apply to the designated judge who then look the merits of the application, then award the interception to that particular applicant. However, the ANC has noted with serious concern that there are so many private companies that are doing the mass interception to our community. As a result, all the blames goes to the state security or the agent and the African National Congress. It is with sadness, Honorable Chairperson, that when these initiatives takes place, the law is being undermined. The law prescripts are not being followed. We therefore request that the private security industry regulator ensures that this takes its main monitoring initiative to ensure that individuals' right to privacy is restored as per our charter, as per our Chapter 2 of the South African Constitution. The Private Industry Regulator Authority has also identified the increased involvement of private security companies in the tax-related conflict. The regulator stated that there are security company owners who own taxes and serve as executive members of tax associations. This behavior resembles more of a javelin behavior or patterns as monitored by the ANC. Honorable Chair, ANC has noted that vetting has to be prioritized by the minister and her department. Especially, the NICOC has to ensure that it execute its task within the legislative framework or the mandate that has been given to it. Thus far, as ANC, we have got a serious concern towards what is being executed by the NICOC. The legislation states clearly that every individual who make an application for employment to any organ of the state before appointment, she or he should have been vetted. ANC noted with sadness that an economic hub municipality in the African continent, that is Johannesburg, Executive Mayor Mashaba of the DA employ a senior person without qualification, no equivalent experience in a senior position. Now, this is a very sadness because the DA claims to be the holy, DA claims to be the one that I'm not too sure what their alliance is saying right now, except that they are just making noise and they don't know what they're saying. I am sure, definitely sure that Honorable Silo Julius Malema is so disappointed because he never believed that you can behave to do such things. I'm sure wherever he is, he's very disappointed because I know him that he doesn't take such behaviors. That's corruption at its best. ANC is aware of the human capital shortage. However, Chairperson, ANC is aware that in our country, we have got the shortages, especially within the community service, which is the DI and the CI and SSA. We therefore request the ministers involved within this community space that they coordinate these functions so as to make sure that they create the pool and develop the skills towards this space. Honorable Chair, ANC requested, what is the problem if I say ANC? I'm proud as a South African and an ANC member, honorable member. Honorable Chair, an ANC requests that in the 5th Parliament, which is this Parliament, which we are now left with some few months, SSA has to render legislative framework to all its legislation. We are glad that His Excellency, the President, Ramaphosa, has identified this loophole or the weakness of the legislation within the intelligence. Almost all, not the SSA alone, even the DI, even the CI, even the SSA, we must have the legislative reform, and the President has actually identified that. We hope and wish that in the fifth Parliament that takes the precedence, because if it doesn't happen, there is going to be a serious problem with the legislation. Intelligent Academy modules or training must be accredited by the recognized institution, Minister, and your department, to be provided by necessary skills so as to render efficient services. ANC cannot deny nor run away for the fact that we'll always appoint cadres of the ANC in this community. But we will make sure that these cadres are well equipped, they are well trained, they go they undergo for training.
2 minutes left.
So, how many minutes?
2 minutes.
Honorable Chair, the Auditor General has raised some concern on the financial management during the 2017-2018 financial year. But however, though, we're happy that something has been done. A memorandum of understanding has been signed between the IG and the Auditor General. Because within the community's intelligence community, Honorable Dr. Ndlozi, there are covert operations and there are overt operations. So you can't see everything in the budget. I'm now teaching you. It is true. It is true. So it is for this reason that they must have a memorandum of understanding, because there are covert operations and there are overt operations.
Order, Honorable
Honorable
Ndlozi.
Chairperson, ANC support this budget vote.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much. Order, honorable members. Order, Honorable Ndlozi. Thank you very much, honorable members. We'll now call upon the Minister of State Security to close the debate. Honorable Minister. Honorable Ndlozi, order, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. We note the comments and the contributions of all the members, including the IFP of the members of Economic Freedom Fighters in relation to the heist, is it heist? Yes. And criminals, alleged criminals in our ranks. And we stated that in order for us to perform our functions in that agency, we need to cleanse first. That's what we said. It means it is an acknowledgement that something is not right. We need to fix it. We also acknowledge the contributions and the comments made by the chairperson of the JCIS, Honorable Chairperson Makula, in relation to prohibiting South Africans who are involved in conflicts in other countries and to make laws that will prohibit them to do so. That is a serious comment we note, because they do those things and then they come here and plant the seed so that we can also experience terror attacks. We also note the comments made in relation to the PEN project. We have nothing to hide, Honorable Member. We are going to make sure we open up. And part of the panel which was announced by the President, one of the tasks is to look into what happened to the PEN project, what informed the PEN project to happen, and also look into the legislation to tighten up so that we don't experience such activities in future. We also noted all other inputs. The IFP, they raise issues of concerns and the killings in the provinces, which we also spoke about in our speech. We, as from Monday, will be in that province looking into the issues, because the President has announced that ourselves in the cluster, we need to go there and do the work. In relation to why the things are happening and the intelligence is not there, I just want to bring to the attention of the members that intelligence, as we always say, is about patriotism and everybody involved in. I'll give an example. On the September 2011 in America, with all what they had, the sophistications in terms of the equipment and the knowledge, but they still experience what happened there. Our interaction with some of them since we have been here is that as long as you don't involve communities, you can have whatever weapons and sophisticated equipment, you will never ever succeed in fighting terror attacks. It's primarily because September 11, ordinary sweepers, they warned them. And they said, no, it's not possible. We intercept anything, including under the sea. So nothing will come by and we don't know. And yet we are there. So we are appealing to all South Africans that we need to be involved and be vigilant. Honorable Ndlovu, it's not the fault of the agency that the issues you raise about. Yes, we acknowledge there are weaknesses. We outline how are we going to address them. But okusalayo, communities must be involved. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.